Welcome back, everybody. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and you're watching Creative Thinkers. As always, we bring you a very special guest. Today we have Timothy Hanlon, and he is a fine artist and a commercial designer. So, Timothy, I want to welcome you to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, no, actually, the pleasure is mine. And the reason for this is because I'm very excited to interview people, and you're one of the great artists here in our city. So, first of all, I want to ask you, are you a local individual? Have you been here your whole life?
I would call myself local. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
But my father was military, and we moved down here. And I've been here most of my life. I'm an El Paso boy. I love the desert. I love the mountains. And I went to school in Dallas, but El Paso's my home.
Beautiful. And being from El Paso, what kind of connection do you have to the individuals here, specifically the creatives in our city?
Oh, gosh, it goes on and on and on. You know, one of the first things was starting working. I was able to be hired as a designer at the Helen of Troy Corporation. And then I was able to work up to art director, senior art director, all those things. But really those first connections were like Victor Morales, who was the creative director there, Tony Pena, who was a higher up senior art director. Those. And then from there, it just goes on and on. You make connections. I'll tell you a quick story of a connection that's kind of amazing.
Please do, please do.
And I will refer to, I have a friend, his name is Jim Murphy, and just showing how the stars align sometimes.
And that's super important.
Yes.
The stars aligning, for sure.
Well, he was the director of, was marketing, or I don't exactly remember, but he was with the El Paso Museum Foundation or system, and he was with El Paso Museum of History.
Okay.
And he's also
not the modern one that we know today.
The new one, yeah.
The new one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and he got me to. We got to talking about an exhibit he wanted to do there. He said, "Well, I always want to do a motorcycle exhibit." And he came to me because I'm a motorcycle guy. My previous company, Main Street Products.
Right, and we'll talk about that because that's super exciting.
Thanks. So Jim. We were sitting down one night at a club, in fact, because we were playing music, because he's a musician and so am I. It might have been a jam night. And he says, "We want to do this exhibit." So I'll try and fast forward this. I said, "Yes, let's do it." I had never done anything like that before. And I did it. And it just knocked it out of the park. The museum loved it. Everybody who came loved it. And from there, I ended up doing a whole run of exhibits for the El Paso Museum System and History Museum. So we did things we did UTEP Centennial, Fort Bliss's celebration, on and on and on. And so from there, and we're talking about connections, the Barnett Harley Davidson people came because of motorcycles. Mark Barnett, his dad loved it. I ended up designing the whole interior with Barnett Harley Davidson and the Two-Headed Bull Cafe, their interior cafe, their service department.
Oh, wow.
All that. And that came from those connections, those things. And that continues on and on and on. You do something, people see it, they come to you, and suddenly they approach you with an offer. And of course, I'm the kind of guy that's like, if it's interesting and I think I can do it, I'll do it.
Right.
Or at least I'll give it a shot.
Right.
And so you take advantage of the opportunities, much like this show. So.
And you always have to do that. But let's go back even further. When you were a child, how in the world was creativity a part of how you grew up? Because I know that people are highly influenced by educators, friends, family. How in the world did that come into play to what you're doing today?
Well, it was a path. I think I identified as a creative since I was a little kid. You know, I think it's a typical path.
Right.
You're good at drawing, you know, and you like it, and you continue it, and people recognize it, and your teachers see it, and they push you along.
Right, right.
And you get better at it, and then maybe at one point you decide this could be a career, which is what I do. And then, so my parents were nice enough to allow me to go to the Art Institute of Houston, or Dallas, excuse me.
Right, right.
And I did that to become a commercial designer, a graphic designer.
Right.
And because that was a good way to make a living being creative.
Right.
commercial way to do it, because not everybody can run out and do the fine art path and make a living, especially when you're just a kid.
Right.
So I did that, and from there, I came back to the city, freelanced for a while, and then was hired by the Hanlon Corporation. And from there was a 13-year journey in that corporation there. So, but back to the original question, I think I was just always that creative kid, and that was one of the few things that excited me. I wasn't into sports. I wasn't into all this stuff. I was kind of sickly as a kid, so I spent a lot of time. Yeah, I spent a lot
at
of time
home drawing and doing things
Mm-hmm.
like that, being as creative as you could. But one of the interesting things is that your parents pushed you, or at least allowed you to have this kind of creative spark within you, which I think is a very positive thing, because I don't believe that enough people understand the connection to creativity and so many things that surround us. And that's one of the ideas and concepts behind the show, for people to learn that there are individuals that are not just artists, even though you are one, but there is creativity within all of us and amongst all of us. How do you think that that filters through the work that you do specifically? Like when you create a sculpture, what is the point of that sculpture?
Originally, you were talking about being encouraged, and my parents were very encouraging, because I think they saw that I had this flair, and they're probably worried I wouldn't be good at anything else. So they wanted to make darn sure I had a career.
Which is what I think most parents want to do, right?
Right. You want to make sure he can sustain himself,
That's wonderful from the get-go.
So, but it really was. And my dad would tell me the story, your mom really did sacrifice a lot to get you. We had to cut back, we had to do this and that, but they did it. And God bless them, mom and dad. But going forward into how does that relate to sculptures? You just get better and better as you go. And if you're real creative, you will get better. You don't give up. There's so many people that get into it and then just, they hit walls and then they stop being creative and go sell insurance or something.
Right.
So, but I'd taken some other gigs in the past, but it's wholly unsatisfying. I just have to be creative. I have to do something creatively. And so that's what's satisfying. And that's the drive. And that's also, you mentioned sculptures, and that's sort of an odd subject because it was sort of a recent thing I started doing.
Right.
But it comes from a background of working in manufacturing, my company Mean Street Products, and being able to make three-dimensional things.
Right.
And in that case, it was out of metal, built aluminum.
Right.
But what I'm doing now, what I do at this moment, is the sculptures for Wet and Wild Water World.
Right. What do you do for them exactly?
I do exhibit. I do attractions. So those are things like we have this one called Under the Sea, and it has giant shark, giant octopus, and all kinds of things happening with it. And around it, then these half mermaid sculptures that people get around, and they can pretend they're a mermaid or a merman or whatever. And then chairs, and just what I'm building out there, if you really want to break it down, is they're art pieces, yes, but they're marketing tools. They're for people to take pictures, selfies, and put them all over the internet, and it's free advertising.
And I think you're also building an environment for these individuals. It's not just a one-off piece. You're creating something bigger. And I think that helps people be happy, I think. And that's one of the things that we talked about a little while ago, is that you were saying that this stuff that you do actually just makes you happy. And if you're not happy, then you can't live, right?
Yeah, well...
Yeah, give us a little insight on that, because I think it's important for the viewers to understand that creativity does this for you.
I will. And I'll tell you that sculpting, if you want to talk about doing something, say, late in life like I did, when I approached this company, I wasn't a sculptor. I wasn't anything like that.
Right.
But I knew I had it in me, and I'd done smaller things. And because of some industrial, the manufacturing background, the fiberglassing, it was all like, I could do this. And I responded to an ad on Craigslist.
Really? That's how
That's how it started.
Okay, and then?
And they
because it's huge. What you're doing is huge.
Now it is. But they built up a whole studio for me, and the place, it's gotten really big. But they I went and met with his name's Conan Edwards, one of the owners, him and his sister, and I just was looking for some freelance work. Maybe work was slow. I could do this. I'd take on some projects, and if not, I'll learn how to do it because I'm kind of a get it done kind of guy.
Right.
And so we went in there, and I met with them, and we went, weeks and weeks, and finally we said, well, we're going to, with what you represent, is more than we need or want, or more than we need, but let's give it a shot. Let's see. Maybe all this other stuff, I don't know if you're going to be able to do it because we don't do those things, but we really need these sculptures done. And here's our vision. They've never been able to achieve that vision. Decades and decades, they just not find the people to do it. And I came in, started doing it. It was natural. And I just kept going. And now I'm really good at it.
That's awesome. But I think all of it kind of comes from a place of creativity, obviously, but then you start learning a little bit, one little step at a time, because you've actually done a lot of things. We actually have some information here about a few of the things that you've done. Cool. One of the things is called Mean Street Motor Products, right? And
Mean Street Products.
Right, and what you guys did was some forks and other products for motorcycles. You can talk a little bit about that. There's another one called Hot Tools, which is the #1 selling product for hair.
It's in the professional industry, it's #1 selling appliance.
Wow.
And I was involved in developing that with the Hanlon Corporation. That what you're holding is the very first catalog. That thing's been out in the market for 30 years now.
Wow.
And it's huge.
And then you've also worked for Dr. Scholl's doing all kinds of different things.
No, I didn't work for them. I was an art director with the Hanlon Corporation, and they bought this brand.
Oh, wow. And they own it, huh?
Right. And they said, you're going to be the art director for this brand. And so that's the way that happened.
So give us a little bit of background on what an art director is and does, because I don't think that our viewing audience understands that concept.
Sure. What does an art director do?
A little bit of everything.
They kind of do. Art directors are the people that bring everybody together.
What do you mean?
You're working in a creative group. Let's say, for example, the way when I was with Helen Troy, we had multiple designers, and different people were art directors, and they handled their crew. So you had production artists behind you that would produce the art. You would design it. It was a competitive environment. You would design with everybody else, and everybody would be involved, and it would be like a competition. Who can win the design? And if you won the design, and the management liked it, and went through all the marketing things, then you produce it, and then you need a crew. So you've got graphic designers, photographers. You would hire out photographers, and you would get a decision on what the product was, and you'd make it. And this was mostly packaging and a lot of literature. Literature we'd put out. You show that, catalogs.
All right.
And we produced. God, I couldn't even tell you how many catalogs we put out. But mainly it was the packaging. We worked with China. And so we would be sending our information back and forth. This is pre-digital, so we'd be FedExing back and forth and faxing information. We moved into digital later, but in the early days, that's what it was like. But you're working with the crew. And so basically, the art director is the general manager of the project.
Okay. And so you direct the way or the direction of what the product is going to eventually be as far as what the visuals are.
Correct.
So if we are marketing, for example, curling iron, you have to think of how in the world can I make this a positive thing for everybody to look at, right? How can I sell this product?
That's correct. And you go through it's hard to explain what you go through to achieve a final product. I'll tell you with Hot Tools, it was coming up with the designs, and then we were moving into the black hair care market. And what I did, I took designs actually to what's called the Bronner Brothers show in Atlanta, the biggest black hairstyling show in the world.
Right.
And we went there with packaging designs and colors, and we did actual focus group on the floor.
Oh, okay. Asking them, what do you think?
What do you like?
Yeah.
Here's 6 different packages. What do you think of these colors? And so we did this sort of impromptu study while we were there. Not terribly sophisticated, but it worked because it all pointed towards a package that was purple and gold and the colors resonated, and so we took that in. The actual packaging we took there, we used, and we produced it, and that's where the teamwork comes in. Then we start developing the packaging, the three-dimensional packaging. Everybody's decided the design. We're good. Product color, name of the product, design the packaging, make sure it all fits, get it off to China, have to make the...
So it's not as simple as saying, I'm going to create a pamphlet and that pamphlet is going to sell every product. We have to understand what colors are going to go with what, if they resonate with the actual audience that you're selling to, and then the packaging itself of the product itself in order for them to understand or correlate with the original pamphlet maybe. Well, so it's a from beginning to end type of process that you have to do.
It is, and it's ongoing. You start it, and then you tweak from there. This worked, that didn't work. Okay, we have new ones. Okay, we're going to add these new to the line. And it's an evolution. The look of Hot Tools these days, I'm not with that company anymore, but it goes on and on. It's a huge line. It still fits my original concept of the colors and the design after all this time. And the name, which I was really involved in that one. I gave it the Hot Tools name, which was based on Helen of Troy, H-O-T.
Oh, wow.
And then tools being, that's what stylists called their implements. Because they're professionals. So they would call their scissors, their curling irons, their blow. Those were my tools.
Wow.
So I went Hot Tools. And that's how that
really cool. I would have never thought that. So you've done a lot of things, and one of the other things that you actually did was you and your brother actually started a company called Mean Street Products.
That's correct.
Yeah, what is that exactly?
Mean Street Products is a high-end fork manufacturer, the front ends, suspension company. We entered in the custom motorcycle industry.
Awesome.
And that turned into a big thing. We started from scratch, and we went to our first trade shows. We developed a line. We called it Mean Street Products. My brother and I, Mike Hanlon, who's a genius maker of things, a machinist and all kinds of things. But so we paired up our skill sets.
Right.
Him being on the technical end, me on more on the creative end.
Right.
And we came together and built this company. And we developed the first product, the first literature. We went to our first show in Indianapolis, a motorcycle show, a trade show, and it took off. We were at the right place at the right time.
Right.
And then the nightmare of manufacturing sets in.
Oh, geez.
And building a product line that's very difficult to do because it's aluminum. It has to be polished, has to be chromed or black anodized. It has to be machined in very sophisticated CNC machines.
Right.
And then you have to have crews to do all this stuff. And as you grow, every company has monster growing pains, and we experienced every one of them.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, but we did with that company. We took off very quickly, and we ended up getting noticed by all the big names in the industry: Orange County Choppers, Jesse James. You go on, Borgette, Spike Works, on, Big Dog, and suddenly we started supplying all these guys.
Okay.
And OCC was one of our best customers, and they started using all of our forks. Eventually, they wanted us to do a custom line for them that only they had, a private label. And they're great guys, really nice. I probably talked to them once a week for many years.
Right, right. And it's an interesting thing that you were able to start out making drawings in class, and then you end up doing something great for these companies that are just huge, and still kind of funneling all of that through the creative process, which I find very compelling, because a lot of people don't feel that creativity is something that's important. Can you tell us why you feel creativity is so important for you?
My goodness, yes, because without creativity, well, you won't have beauty.
Right. Very true.
You won't have new products. You won't have the thing about creativity. It's not just drawing and painting and things. It's many things. It's how you look at something. How can you fix that? That's creativity. How do you problem solve? How do you make something look beautiful?
Right.
How do you make, or in a commercial vein, how do you make this connect with somebody and make them feel good about your product? Or in an art end, internally, you want to put out things that you want people to see because you love it, and you paint personally for yourself. But most of my life's been spent doing creative work that's meant for the marketplace and getting out there, and whether it was packaging design or product design, things like that. Back to the question of just what is creativity, to me it's everything, because I kind of look everything through a creative lens.
Right. What is the advantage of that?
Problem solving, I think, for me. I am able to come up with solutions, and that's just not creativity, that's practical experience, especially when you're in manufacturing. You learn to troubleshoot just about everything when you're making a product and you've got all kinds of things happening around you, and many of them going wrong. So you become a good troubleshooter and you get creative at solving those problems. And if there's something that you can't get to fix it, well, you make something that'll fix it.
Right, right.
So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does to me, because that's something that I do on a day-to-day basis. I may go in to teach my class, or I may come in here and interview somebody, and I have to figure things out on the fly, right? The conversation that we're having right now is a creative process as we speak, which is interesting because a lot of people don't think when I speak to somebody, what I'm doing is I'm actively being creative. And I feel that that's one of the things that we absolutely need to get our studio audience to understand, is that creativity is a huge part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. Whether you're a photographer, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a mother, whether you're a father, it really doesn't matter. But one of the things that I found really interesting about what you do is that you are multifaceted. You are not an individual that only focuses on one thing.
Correct.
And what has forced you to do that? Or what has led you to do that?
Desperation.
Why is that? Why is that?
Well, no, I would say
one thing ends and another one begins, or how does that work out?
Well, I think because I'm very curious, and I come from a family where there were many things around me. I was the weird creative kid in the family, and my brothers, and I have two sisters. There's creativity that runs through the whole family,
right?
But not necessarily right to the art thing, like what I wanted to do. So,
do you now see that creativity is not just art? Do you see it as something that is much, much broader? Because when you were drawing, you thought, oh, I'm being creative because I'm drawing, right? But now it's like, oh, I can make forks, and I can make pamphlets, and I can, convince people of things through this art. And that's one of the things that we don't often think about, is the power behind both creativity and art, because it is a powerful tool that you are using.
Yes. Well, we talked about creativity. Everybody has the opportunity to be creative in some way or another. Depends how much you push it.
And I think we are all creative. You put on your clothes, you're being creative.
That's right.
You don't have to sit there and like really meticulously think about what am I going to wear.
Right. What's my hair
the fact that
like?
you put it together means that you're being creative. But you were saying?
Well, yeah, creative is all encompassing. And I think that I touched on earlier that I see things through a creative lens. I feel good when I'm working creatively. I want to work creatively. I'm not happy if I'm not working creatively. So that's the drive. I have to reach out and find these things that work for me. I've tried other gigs, and it wasn't pleasant. If I can continue to work creatively, it's a good thing. And I'd encourage anybody who, in any field, you can be a creative gardener, for goodness sakes.
For sure.
And that's a real thing. Woodworkers, making things. Get off the couch and make something. How's that?
And one of the interesting things is that a lot of people don't see that there is a scientific way to analyze the fact that when we are stimulated, it brings us joy. And I think that may be one of the things that you work with on a day-to-day basis. So because it makes you happy, you're like, I need to be as creative as possible, whichever way it is, through sculpture, through mechanical things, through design and drawing, things like that. So do you have any advice that you could give the general public as to whatever they can do, maybe a thing that has helped you in the past?
Well, if you have a desire to do things, whatever that thing is, don't ignore it. Pursue it. Find your passion somewhere. There's many ways to do that. But you will find joy in accomplishing. I find joy in accomplishing. And there's a selfish aspect to it too, because I create these things and I watch people enjoy them.
Yeah.
That is amazing, really.
Yeah.
I see little kids and I see adults. And then I've got the people I work with that are always encouraging, like, oh, wow, you know, look at that. And so you don't get that being an accountant. Not knocking accountants, by the way, but you know, they don't walk in, that's the best spreadsheet I've ever seen, you know?
But it may be the best outfit they wore the whole week, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But to that question, pursue those things. Don't, I get concerned, and I see it now with my kids and all people too caught up in entertainment. Entertain me. That's how I fill my time.
So what you're saying is that we need to just get out and do
a
little bit more.
Yes.
Well, we quickly run out of time in this show, and it's a very sad thing because we only have 28 minutes. But I want to thank you for being and taking your time out to talk to us, because it is the most important thing for our viewers to meet people from our community and see what they have to say. So I want to thank you for being here.
Hey, man. I really appreciate this.
No, the pleasure was
a pleasure
mine.
meeting you and this wonderful studio and your staff. Great guy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody for joining us once again. As always, we bring you guys different guests that we talk about, and we always focus on creativity. But the most important aspect of this is who these individuals are. So I encourage you guys to keep watching, and if you guys need to get in contact with me, maybe you know somebody that I might be able to interview, you guys can contact me at mvalen31@epcc.edu. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you very much.